So this is it? 9 years and you couldn't even wait for me to leave the room?
Nkechi, it's not what it looks like.
Then tell me, Chidubem, what exactly does it look like from where I'm standing?
Nkechi pushed open the office door without knocking and froze. Chidubem had Ronke pinned against his desk, her fingers laced through his collar, his mouth crushed against hers like he'd never kissed Nkechi that hungrily in 9 years of marriage. The stack of files in her hands hit the floor and scattered across the tiles. Before we go further, hit subscribe now, drop a like, and comment "watching" so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you will want to see how this ends. Nkechi, Chidubem stumbled back, wiping his mouth like he could erase what she'd just seen. Don't. Her voice didn't shake. That surprised her more than it surprised him. Don't say my name like you remember what it means. Ronke straightened her blouse, unbothered, almost amused by the scene unfolding. So, this is the wife, she said, eyes sweeping over Nkechi, the faded wrapper, the soap-cracked hands, the plastic slippers caked with dust from the road. I thought he was exaggerating when he described you. Get out, Chidubem backed at Ronke, but his eyes stayed locked on Nkechi, pleading, desperate. No, let her stay. Nkechi stepped closer to the man she had married in a borrowed dress 9 years ago, the man whose feet she had washed when he was too proud to ask anyone for help, whose second-hand shoes she had polished before every interview, whose dream she had carried on her back like firewood through 9 dry seasons and 9 harmattans. I sold pepper soup by the roadside so you could wear a tie to this office, Chidubem. I washed strangers' underwear in cold water so you could buy that phone in your pocket. I skipped meals so you would never skip yours. And this is what I get? It's not what it looks like, he said, and even he seemed to hear how hollow that sounded bouncing off the office walls. It's exactly what it looks like. Her hands trembled now, finally, the shock catching up to her body. I gave you 9 years. 9! And you couldn't even give me the truth. Ronke laughed softly, cruelly. 9 years of washing clothes, and you are surprised he wants something else? Something easier? Something in Nkechi cracked open. But it wasn't the crack of breaking. It was the crack of a door she never knew existed. You people think shame belongs only to the poor, she said quietly, turning toward the exit. Wait until the poverty of your soul comes looking for both of you. It always does. She walked out before either of them could respond, and for the first time in 9 years, she didn't glance back to see if he was following. That night, Chidubem didn't come home. Nkechi sat on the edge of their narrow bed in their one-room apartment in Ajegule, staring at the wall where his framed graduation photo still hung, the one she had paid for with 3 months of savings from selling akara before sunrise. She touched the glass and finally let herself cry the way she hadn't allowed herself in 9 years of swallowing her pride whole for his sake. By morning, his bags were gone. He must have come while she slept, taking his clothes, his shoes, the small television they bought together in their 2nd year, back when they still laughed at the same jokes and shared the same plate of rice when money was tight. He left a note folded on the table. I need a life that fits who I'm becoming. I'm sorry, Chidubem. She read it 3 times before the words made any sense at all. Then she folded it small and tight, as though pressure alone could make it disappear. The weeks that followed blurred into a fog of humiliation. Neighbors whispered when she passed the compound gate. The women at the market who once greeted her warmly now looked at her with a particular pity reserved for wives who had been discarded. Her food store, which was once steady enough to save from, began to falter. Her hands moved through the motions of frying akara and wrapping moi moi, but her mind stayed elsewhere, replaying every warning sign she had chosen not to see. She saw them together once, by accident, weeks later, Chidubem behind the wheel of a new car, Ronke beside him in sunglasses that probably cost more than Nkechi's entire store and its contents combined. He didn't see her standing on the roadside, invisible in her old wrapper, watching the life she had built for him drive past like she'd never existed at all. That night,
Walking home through the rain, with her unsold food still balanced on her head, she slipped on wet gravel and fell hard, the pot crashing beside her, days of profit spilling into the gutter in thin, greasy streams. She sat there in the mud, soaked to the skin, and for one long, terrible moment, she considered not getting up at all. "You need help?" A man's voice, calm, unhurried. She looked up to see a stranger extending his hand, plain clothes, steady eyes, no rush in his posture as if he had nowhere else more urgent to be. "I don't need pity," she said, wiping rain or tears from her face. She couldn't tell which was which anymore. "I'm not offering pity," he said simply. "I'm offering a hand. There's a difference." His name was Uchenna. He helped her gather what little she could salvage, walked beside her in silence for a while, then said something she wouldn't forget for a long time. "There's a place, women go there, to remember exactly that. I can take you if you are ready." She wasn't ready, but she said yes anyway, because staying where she was felt worse than the fear of moving. The following Saturday, Nkechi stood outside a modest building with a hand-painted sign reading Ada Women's Renewal Center, her stomach twisted tight with a mix of curiosity and dread. Uchenna walked her to the gate and stopped there, respectful of the line between helping and intruding. "This part is yours," he said gently. "I'll be outside when you're done." Inside, a dozen women sat in a circle, some older, some her age, some barely out of their 20s, each carrying a story written plainly on their faces. A woman named Comfort, who ran the center, welcomed her without asking a single question about why she'd come. "We don't force anyone to talk here," Comfort said. "You talk when the silence becomes heavier than the shame." Nkechi sat at the edge of the circle for 3 sessions before she said a single word. On the 4th, when a woman named Blessing shared how her own husband had left her for someone more presentable, something inside Nkechi finally split open. "He kissed her in front of me," she said, her voice cracking down the middle. 9 years, and he couldn't even wait until I left the room to do it? The room didn't gasp. No one pitied her out loud. They simply nodded, the quiet nod of women who understood without needing a single extra detail. "What did you do for those 9 years?" Comfort asked. "I sold food. I washed clothes. I sold pieces of my dignity so he could buy his." "And what will you do now?" Nkechi didn't have an answer that day.
But the question followed her home, sat beside her while she stirred her pot of soup, whispered itself into her ear as she counted coins that never seemed to stretch far enough. Weeks passed. She kept returning to the center, not because Uchenna pushed her, but because something in that room made her feel like a person again, not a cautionary tale whispered about in the market. Comfort taught her how to price her food properly, how to negotiate with suppliers instead of accepting whatever they offered, how to save even when the profit was small and the temptation to spend it all was smaller only by comparison. Slowly, painfully, her stall began to grow. She hired a young girl, Chiamaka, to help on the busiest days. For the first time in years, she wasn't drowning. She was impossibly floating. If you are still here, drop a comment telling me what you would have done in Nkechi's shoes. Walked away immediately or waited to hear him out. I'm reading every comment, so don't be shy. And if this story has you hooked, make sure you've liked the video. We're heading into the part everyone's been waiting for. Then, one ordinary afternoon, Chidubem appeared at her store. He looked different, thinner, his once crisp shirt now wrinkled at the collar, his confidence dimmed down to something almost apologetic. "Nkechi," he said, and this time his voice actually trembled, cracking on the second syllable of her name. "What do you want?" she asked, not pausing her walk, her knife still moving through onions with practiced precision. Things didn't work out with Ronke. She left the moment the money stopped coming. I lost the job too, the one you helped me get, the one I paid you back with silence and shame.
Everything I thought I was chasing, it wasn't real, Nkechi. None of it was real. Nkechi wiped her hands slowly on her apron and looked at him. Really looked, the way you look at a stranger you used to know by heart, and felt something she hadn't expected to feel. Not rage, not triumph, just a quiet, settled distance, wide as a river. "I'm sorry that happened to you," she said, and meant it, the way you mean things about people who no longer belong to your life.
"I want to come back," he said, stepping closer. "I know I don't deserve it, but I want to try. Please." She was quiet for a long moment, long enough that hope flickered dangerously across his face. Then she said, evenly, "Chidubem, I spent 9 years shrinking myself so you could feel bigger. I am not going back into that shape. Not for you, not for anyone, ever again." "So that's it? 9 years? Gone? Just like that?" "No," she said, and for the first time, her voice softened, not for him, but for the version of herself who had survived those years. 9 years taught me something I couldn't have learned any other way. I only wish it hadn't cost me you to finally learn it." He left without another word, shoulders low, and this time it was Nkechi who watched him walk away, not with heartbreak twisting in her chest, but with something close to peace settling there instead. Months passed. Her stall grew into a small restaurant with comfort's guidance and the quiet, steady support of the women who had once been strangers and were now something closer to sisters. Customers lined up before sunrise for her jollof rice and her peppered fish, and word spread through the neighborhood that the woman who used to be pitied was now the woman people admired. One evening, she stood at the entrance of her restaurant, tying her apron in the golden light of sunset, when Uchenna walked past and smiled. "You look happy," he said, and there was no expectation buried in the words, no hidden agenda waiting to surface. "I am," she said, and realized fully and completely that she meant it, for the first time in longer than she could remember. "Not because someone finally chose me, because I finally chose myself." She turned back toward the restaurant, toward the life she had built with her own 2 hands, out of ashes and humiliation and quiet, stubborn hope. And she didn't look back, not out of anger anymore, but because there was nothing behind her left worth chasing. Only forward, where the life she had always deserved was finally, fully, undeniably hers. If this story moved you even a little, smash that like button right now, hit subscribe so you never miss the next one, and comment below where you are watching from. I genuinely want to see how far this story reached. See you in the next one.